This is your urgent call to action. We are all called to lead in a world in chaos, crisis, and turmoil. Join a pivotal global movement for change to transform the leadership crisis worldwide. Will you play it safe, or will you wake up, step up, and speak out? Like Nelson Mandela did for South Africa and the world, we need a radical new way to think, act, and lead, leading boldly into the future. Join host Anne Pratt, a Harvard Fellow and multi-awarded businesswoman, and unlock the best version of yourself to revolutionize leadership with what the world needs now.
Greetings to all you future bold leaders. Thank you for joining us from around the world. My name is Anne Pratt. I'm formerly from South Africa, and I relocated abroad to attend a Harvard Leadership Fellowship in beautiful Boston in the United States of America. Our bold leader today joins us from the sunny shores of South Africa. She lives and works on multiple continents and frequently travels the world. She is most often based in London, South Africa, and the United States of America. Today, she joins us from our joint hometown in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, in South Africa. In her previous life, she spent 19 years as head of human capital for one of the largest listed banks in South Africa, Nedbank. She is an Aspen Fellow, and she is also the recipient of the 2016 Africa Award for Entrepreneurial and Academic Excellence. She is passionate about leadership as a multiplier force for good in business, in societies, and in the world. And to further this aim, she has founded, co-founded, and led a number of initiatives, including a global forum called the Davos of Human Capital, a live streaming initiative for the youth of South Africa on the future of artificial intelligence, and a Women Leading Africa board program. We warmly welcome my dear friend and Duke Corporate Education Global Chief Executive Officer, Sharmla Chetty, and welcome to Leading Boldly into the Future. Sharmla Chetty, my friend from Durban, my former hometown. It's so wonderful to talk to you today. Thank you so much for coming to share this conversation with us.
Good, Anne. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited and absolutely elated. Wonderful to actually have my hometown girl interview me this afternoon in South Africa. So excited to be as part of your show, Anne.
That's awesome. Sharmla, I've watched your career and I've known you over many years. I know you started in banking. You spent 19 years with one of the big listed banks in South Africa and was head of human capital. And then you founded Duke Corporate Education in South Africa, if I recall, in 2007. I thought a very interesting place to start. I know your purpose and passion is around leadership and transforming organizations and lives. And I wondered, from your perspective, what do you think the educational sector has got right around leadership, and where do you think the current gaps are?
Well, absolutely. I think, and the education sector is at a very difficult point in history right now. COVID-19 has actually created that opportunity. When I said created that opportunity, as you know, a lot of people didn't want to do online learning. And all of a sudden, the whole went, pivoted online overnight. So absolutely, there is an opportunity. It gives the, education sector people access to anywhere education at any time, right? So also, the notion of actually expensive business schools programs have been at a disruption space where the sector had to rethink about how they give access to everybody. So the education sector is going through a lot of change at the moment. And most importantly, there is absolutely no playbook for leadership at a time like this. So meaning that this is the time of experimenting, this is the time of relearning and unlearning for everybody in terms of leadership. And leaders had to pivot overnight in terms of leadership at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I mean, it's almost like we have a blank sheet to work from. And in your mind, from, sitting in your remarkable position, what in your research, Sharmla, can you share with us what is coming through in terms of some of the big leadership challenges and perhaps the disconnects between, what leaders are really tasked to do and their current skill set?
As I alluded to, it is a difficult time because, I think the most important thing is that how do you encourage somebody to find solutions to problems instead of actually telling you the problem, right? Making sure that at a time like this, how do we draw lessons learned from success or setbacks at a time like this that you could actually use to navigate through this difficult times at the moment. Yeah. And, also, is it safe to take risk in a very difficult economic time? So leaders are facing those challenges at the moment. So it's important for us to understand that there is absolutely no playbook. There is absolutely no recipe for this. And sometimes leaders are saying, do I use my gut feeling or do I actually learn from some of my setbacks or successes to navigate through this complexity, especially at a time like this. But most importantly, at a leadership level, you have to care, show empathy, listen to your people. For me, the whole notion about caring is such an important aspect. It's not just caring for the employee, but caring for the larger ecosystem, meaning that when you actually have the employee, you have to think about the families too, the community. A good example is that, COVID-19 has given rise to leaders to think about broader than just the organization. One example that I'm working with, as an example, a company that I'm working with, the employees, the kids were struggling with remote studying. They allowed those kids to actually use their parents' laptops and study during this period. And that for me was sharing care and, around empathy. The second example is around, a technology company that you and I know about. They actually said, can we actually increase Wi-Fi access to employees' kids as well? So it's around care, empathy, around wellness. Wellness is key at the moment. A lot of employees are struggling regarding wellness. So organizations are caring and leaders are caring. So they're not only thinking about profits, they're thinking about how do I care about my employees at this time.
Yeah. And you make the very important point, Sharmla, that, we navigate through these, valleys and peaks. In your own life, I know you're a very purpose-driven individual and leader. What has been a dark, challenging moment for you? Can you take us back in time? What was that specific moment? And how did you feel at the time?
So, Anne, you may not know this, but I was expelled from school at the age of 16. This was the most difficult time I faced. A lot of uncertainty. Imagine being expelled from school. Although it was a pivotal moment for me, it happened, as I said, at the age of 16, where as a child, I was not allowed to oppose the government. I was not allowed to, become an activist. But I was openly doing this at school. I had a voice. I was not going to be silenced, right? So being expelled was that dark moment. Obviously, coming from a family that really felt that I was the ticket to get a good education. It was important for them that I graduate from university. My dad was unemployed. And this was his moment. So he was claiming his moment by investing in me and then me getting expelled. So you can imagine that was really tough for my family. I was known to be a fearless disruptor and an absolute rebel regarding, in my family at that time.
And can we ask which school and were you expelled because of your activism? I mean, what was the moment?
Absolutely. In apartheid during that time, everybody was boycotting. I was at Merebank High. In fact, today I went to Merebank High because I started a bursary for the school as well. So it's Merebank High in Merebank in Durban. You know, I wanted to also contribute to say that this is a community that invested in me. This is a community that believed in me. And this is my way of contributing by providing a bursary program for the school as well.
Well, that's a wonderful outcome. I'm curious to know, in that moment of darkness, how did you pivot out? What steps did you take to pivot out of that? And what was the outcome? Where did you go to school?
So, of course, you know, at that period in time, the kids couldn't go back to school, and we had a court case where, you know, it was state versus the school, you know, the parents versus the state, and we won the case, and every child went back to school. But more importantly, I had this amazing grandmother. You know, I realized her words were carrying weight. She was like very motivational. She herself experienced really difficult moments because she was widowed very early. You know, she had to take care of her family. She saw my pain and fear, and she realized that I could be part of something bigger and something exceptionally meaningful. So she had the power and the ability to lift me by encouraging me, by inspiring me that to have a vision, don't get distracted regarding the difficult moments. And she also said that, you know, despite of all the challenges, there is light. And I thought that for me was really amazing, because in this journey, you know, as you could imagine, it was a very difficult time for my family. A girl getting expelled from school, you know, she potentially
What year
could
was
support.
that, Sharmla? I'm sorry, what year was
This
that?
was in the 1982, and it was tough. And during this time, I thought it was, of course, a very painful experience that I had to go through as a child. And also, I remember the somebody saying to me, the only job you're going to be doing is to work in a cotton factory in Durban, because if you don't have an education, this is what is going to happen. And immediately my grandmother said, you know, she said, she is someone that is going to be doing something bigger and exceptionally meaningful. And that, you know, I believed in. I think that, you know, although there was a lot of fear and self-doubt even going through my mind, but my grandmother was so positive and inspirational at a very difficult time. And that for me was the big lesson, that in difficult times, you still need to inspire, you still need to give good messages, and you need to create hope in difficult times.
Yeah, and so relevant for us today in people dealing with the trauma of the current moment, you know. That's wonderful. Is your grandmother still with you? Is she still alive?
No, she's late, and she's late. You know, she actually passed away in 1984 as I concluded school, you know, my matric here. And, you know, I dedicated that my year to her because, one, you know, she was so inspirational, and she saved, you know, even to the extent she saved her money that I could go to university. How amazing was that?
Wow, what a tribute to her, Sharmla. What a remarkable woman. And how right was she? I mean, you know, that you've got something big and purposeful and meaningful to do in the world. Let's fast forward about 40 years. You know, you founded Duke Corporate Education in 2007 to being, you know, global president. Can you share with us a moment in your career life that has been particularly challenging? Very often there's a messy middle. Is there a moment that you can take us back to that has been particularly difficult for you, and what was the anxiety or the emotion then, and how did you pivot out of that?
So one of the things that, as you could imagine, for me to leave a steady, lucrative post as the head of human capital at Nedbank, where, I had initially, did a lot of work in leadership. And when I started, taking up this job, I really stepped into the unknown. I had no idea about building Duke and starting from scratch. But there was one thing that I really felt very close to was around, education, around social change, about how can I actually pivot a nation to actually, for all the injustice that went around, with education, how could Duke be a catalyst, a change for that? But, having said this, I had no idea, I launched Duke Corporate Education, as the first managing director. You could imagine embedding a US brand in uncharted territory. It was difficult. We were competing with absolutely good brands, in South Africa, that really has done fantastic work. So although I knew education is a key driver for social justice, and I knew that I had to build that leadership capability, and I knew that this was my calling, I had no idea that this was possible, because at that stage, it's around, yes, I know I'm a great hard worker. I had entrepreneurial skills early. I had change in me. But taking a brand that has been unknown in South Africa and launching it, it was just impossible. So for me, it was a time where I had to rethink this. It was around, getting a team. When people say having a vision and, blueprint, it makes it easier. There was no, yes, I had a vision, but this blueprint was changing because I had to adapt to whatever was, experimenting at that time, trying different ideas. So I had to, I was encountering so many challenges at the time, and I had to change the vision as we were moving on, change the goals as we were moving on.
Yeah. Is there a particular moment, Sharmla, that stands out when it sort of felt a little overwhelming or?
Yes, I did, I was, there was a lot of anxieties inside me, in terms of I had to project confidence, optimism, and a can-do attitude, because I was bringing a team along. So at this moment in time is that we hit with the financial crisis, and we lost 3 clients that had set up the brand, right? And you could imagine the fear going into me by saying, all these people came with you, now what happens, right? Are we going to close down at this moment in time? So I had to project confidence in the team. So it was a very difficult time as well.
How did you?
So it was a scary moment you could imagine, absolutely scary moment at that time, because you've got people with you. So what do you do?
So what was the aha moment? What was the moment when you said, this fear, this anxiety? What was the aha moment? When did you come?
So the aha moment was I decided that yes, I'm gonna be more confident, right? Because this is possible, right? We believe that education is a key driver.
What's the decision you made?
Yes. I said, we're going to go this route. We're going to go all out in the route. We're going to do this. So as a team, you have to tell each other the truth. So I actually said, it's a really difficult time, but we are in this together. And this is our moment to create a great brand on the ground, and let's do this. If 10 doors is closed, we're going to actually go in and actually knock at another 100. Right. Okay. And we went. And in that moment in time, there was a client that called us. Not one, but 3 called us in that same week. And we were shortlisted because we were just writing proposals nonstop. We were waking up at about 2 a.m., checking proposals. The next team was taking it on. And we were kind of working nonstop until we were getting to a point that we thought, is this possible? And when we got that call, 3 proposals, 3 RFPs shortlisted in 1 week. we won all 3 in 1 week. You would have no idea how happy we were. It was an absolute game changer in the country, because already now we won 2 banks and we won 1 mining company. 2 banks talk to each other. And then history was made. With those 2 banks and a mining company, history was made. We now were firm on the ground, because the contracts that we won were huge contracts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we had to employ more teams as well onto the ground. And so we said, we want to employ the smartest and the brightest with us.
Yeah.
People that are really, committed to purpose, people that are wanting to do education, may not necessarily come from education, but may come from consulting, that may come from technology. But let's aggregate the best assets around us to build this brand. And that's how it happened.
I mean, that's a wonderful story. And what I'm hearing you say, Sharmla, is this whole commitment to people, the brightest and the best, and how you engage people. What were the kind of leadership realizations around how do you energize people in that moment of crisis?
I think one of the things you need to dig deep, to engage your teams. When communication breaks down, you need to think about how you actually need to engage with your team members. The other part is that you need to encourage your teams to ask for help, because there are a lot of times teams may feel that there is a fear, to actually, ask. You should actually say, one of the things I do very well is actually saying to team members, you can ask me anything, anytime. You can call me at any time as well. So they need to feel confident, right? Yeah. And the other part is that it's important that you work with your team to say, what do you need to deliver? What does success look like? So that you align all the teams to establish, what does good performance look like? You create a culture of accountability. We all actually then say what the KPIs could look like. So we create dashboard priorities. I think for me that was important. But more importantly, it was to engage the team to feel like I've got you in a very difficult time when you're working with them as well. So if they come in to work on a Saturday, you too must feel that you too can demonstrate and role model the same behavior. If they're leaving their families behind, why should they come to work? And you think, no, I can stay at home. No ways. I often join them, at the office and say, how are you doing? I encourage them to bring their families as well, if they are coming to the office as well. It's so important that you get to understand their families too, right? Because when you're working with their employee, it's not just them, it's everybody in the ecosystem as well.
Yeah. No, that's such a powerful reminder, actually, and how we need to go beyond just the face of the employee and understand the team member as a human being and what matters to them. I was curious, and perhaps that pivots well into the other question that came to mind. I know at Duke you founded an initiative called the Davos of Human Capital, which can you just share why the name? Tell us a little bit about who that involved. I know there were CEOs and but tell us a little about why this initiative, why the name, what's the purpose of this?
So the Davos of Human Capital, and I personally have never got to Davos, right? So to be honest, I had always wanted to go to Davos, and I never got to Davos. And I thought, why not create our own Davos? Human capital people are the contributors to building the assets of people in the country. Collectively, let us we all are facing the same peer pressures about people development, leadership. Let's get everybody into the same room. So I had this crazy idea to say, I want to do the Davos of Human Capital, and I want to actually extend this out to everyone else around the world. And of course, the word Davos created a lot of challenges. From a legal perspective, we had to check this out. Is Davos can I use the word Davos? And of course, working for an American university, everybody was like worried regarding the word Davos. So we had to check it out. We got our lawyers to look at the word Davos of Human Capital, and hence it was created. So it was a crazy idea. I never got to Davos. I wanted to create my own Davos. I wanted to create it with, if you make human capital people accountable for leadership in our country, they own, they challenge, and collectively, how can we all be accountability partners by creating a forum where they all can share their ideas, but most importantly, learn from each other, experiment, and create a community that can actually help each other regarding generation of new ideas as well.
And what is it about Davos specifically that made you choose that brand name? And can you just share with us how broad and widely that initiative has reached?
So it started small, but the first year we had about 11 million views on it. We had about 700 people face to face. And then the event has just gone bigger and bigger over the years now. It started regionally in South Africa. Now it's an absolute global event. We have global leaders around the world, CEOs, CFOs, HR directors. But I didn't want it to be exclusively for HR people. The people challenge is not an HR challenge. It's everyone's challenge. So I wanted everyone to be part of the convening the discussion regarding people agenda, leadership agenda, and most importantly, what are the cutting edge thinking that is happening, whether it's leadership, whether it's technology, whether it's on cryptocurrency, whether it's on cyber, whether it's on ESG. We all own the challenge at a global level. So, and, leadership has no boundaries. Topics have no boundaries. So let's all learn from each other. And we have we have access to the best thought leadership, and let's actually pull that thought leadership together. So that's the idea that started. We said, let's learn from each other. Let's unlearn from each other too, right? It's not just learning from each other. And it's the whole notion about relearning happened too. So it was like, I said, in this process, let's just have fun in this process as well. So for me, it was about, when we created this, we said, let's just have lots of fun doing it. At one stage, I think my colleague said, are you sure you want to get 7,700 people into the room? And I said, well, if we can't, can we hire a crowd, please? Because I'm in serious trouble right now. I've got the best thinkers in the world coming to do this event. And, so can you make me a promise that we could do this? But, in this process, somebody has to believe in your vision. Because this crazy ideas can't just be you executing it. So I have team members that I say, we have this vision. Can we all work together? Can we all own this thing together? Let's create this as our idea collectively together. And so, there is Julia Cook in my team, and she's like amazing. And she said, of course, we can do this. And then another team member comes on. So it's a slow process, but eventually you get a whole community with you believing in your idea. And it happens, once people see the idea is taking off, they start believing in it and they start trusting you with it. But most importantly, I think it's being honest as well in a difficult time. When you have an idea, when things are not working out, you just need to say it's not working out.
Yeah. And did that happen? Did that happen in this initiative?
Yes, it did. I mean, a lot of times it happened in the initiative, right? Because in this initiative, you're having ideas, you're thinking, people are believing in your vision. And so I'm very honest, and I'm brutally honest when things don't work. And I had to say to them, we don't have enough stakeholders involved in this process. How do we get more stakeholders believing in our vision? So whether, how do you actually talk to them about saying that, this vision, that they, that can work? and we can achieve this goal. Because at times you could imagine nobody's like saying, wow, is this possible? This is a Davos of Human Capital. It's a crazy idea. So having a vision and a blueprint makes it easier to achieve the aspired goals, right? But so in this case, we had this vision and people were saying, well, I'm not too sure. But I think in this process, what I found that, I was under a lot of pressure regarding the idea, but I also had to listen and have an open mind regarding how I'm going to actually work with others. So it wasn't just like thinking it was my idea, but bringing, others along in this process as well was very important as well. And I also realized that having an idea requires a lot of hard work, right, behind the curtains to make the success happen. And so I had to also conduct a lot of research, do lots of analysis, before I came to certain decision points. But there were times in this process I had to turn back and say, it's not going to work. I hear you, to my team members. So I think it's important to set people free by allowing them the power of actually saying to you, it's not going to work as well, and how can they become a good contributor to the idea, but you listen to them. Because sometimes you may have an idea and you may push ahead and feel that, this is the way to go. But there were times I said, well, I hear you, let's take stock, let's go back, let's review this, let's think about this thing differently. And a good example is that if you were having 700 people in the room, is there an opportunity to create a space, an outside area screen where others can have coffee but still, enjoy the conference? So, and I said, but we're all in this room. And my team said, how about creating a very casual space, a very intimate where people can still have meetings but catch the event? And I said, absolutely. So, in the process, it wasn't just going into a conference room. We had to create spaces. There was another idea that came around by, creating the Davos and replicating the Davos is creating little spaces around sessions, around thought leadership early in the morning, where people peers got together to hear something new. Regarding, it would be like remote work, right? Hybrid work model, the future of work. And people had like 15 minutes, think tank session as well. So it was a wonderful opportunity to, get a bigger team. The other part is that you want team members to push you.
Yeah.
Right. You want team members to challenge you. So I enjoy that. I love working with youngsters that are continuously pushing me and helping me to think differently, because I love the creativity with the young team members. They just bring an amazing energy as well in the process as well. And they really challenge you, regarding your ideas, because, you come up with certain ways of thinking about things, and these guys are energized and, coming up and saying, well, we think this, and we thought about it in this way.
Yeah. That's the one. And just to finish off, I mean, where has the impact spread to currently? I had the great joy and privilege of being part of your 2021 Davos of Human Capital. How big has it grown to? How many people?
Well, it's now over like 90 countries around the world. It's also like over I think well over 2,000 companies that are attending as well. So, wow. The thing is spread, around the world. And, from what's so amazing, from anywhere in Africa to South America to Asia, it's just like spread dramatically. And everybody looks forward to the event. In fact, a few weeks ago, I got a call from somebody in Asia saying, hey, I'd love to be a speaker in your event. And one of the things you should think about is having 100 speakers. We had about 30. And then I said, why not have more than 100, to my colleagues? So the event is actually next year, it's going to become the Davos of leadership, because we thought this is the time for leadership. This is a very important time of history. it's an absolute great moment to think about 2022, not just a 2-hour session. Imagine if we did this around the world, with different time zones, we could actually recreate this totally different.
Well, that's a wonderful pivot point, Sharmla. In your mind, what are the big leadership challenges today that will define what is called out of us as leaders and our next generation to lead boldly into the future?
I think the big challenges that are keeping me awake at night at the moment is that it is the wellness of people at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're seeing this. People are, their wellness. COVID has created a lot of challenges for people at the moment. Isolation, working remotely, and you're finding that people are saying, employees are saying that I'm burnt out, right? I'm managing not just my work environment, I'm managing my family life as well. So leaders need to actually be in tune with the employees, what is happening. The second thing is around in a time like this with leadership, how do you engage for impact in times of crisis? No job is more important than taking care of your team. So, as a leader, you need to understand your team's circumstances, their distractions. You need to find ways to engage, motivate, and inspire your teams all the time at the moment. And, we also understand, goals are important, revenues are important, but if you don't have people, you don't have, revenue and goals for an organization. So, you need to think about what are you doing at the time to bring people on. It needs extra attention because although COVID-19 is a pandemic, of course, it's a health crisis and it's financial crisis as well. But leaders need to think about their people first. They need to put their people first strategy first before they think about the financial strategy. So at this moment, leaders are grappling with managing people first. The second thing is that leaders are grappling with is around remote work, hybrid work model. They're grappling with how jobs are going to change for the future because of COVID-19. So there are multiple things that are happening within the leadership space. But most importantly, there is no leadership playbook at a time like this. You need to actually rise to the experiment. And most importantly, you have to be in tune with your people. Listen to your people. Be open to your people. And then in terms of courage, what is courage?
What is it?
I think courage is around care. Courage is around care, empathy, support. That's what courage is around. People think courage is around doing something like, climbing a mountain. No, mountains are here. We are people. We've climbing mountains every single day in our private and our personal lives. You can imagine when you don't have Wi-Fi for your child. That's a mountain to climb.
Sure.
So show care. So leaders need to show care and empathy. For me, our dean often talks about being decent as a leader. The IQ, EQ is important, but the decency is more important in a time like this.
And and in terms of that decency, is that about your care? Is it, what does decency?
Decency is actually absolutely, it's around, care, empathy, listening, holding people accountable for, what we should be doing for our society as well, right? Mm-hmm. So that for me is embedding the notion about making sure that a society, that we all are responsible for an ecosystem broader than just us, our communities, our, everybody around us, for me, is thinking about decency as well in a time like this.
Of course. And that's, decency is a wonderful kind of entree into a leader that we both admire and respect and love in many ways. Nelson Mandela, as a leader, spent 27 years fighting for the right for dignity, respect, decency, and justice, truth, and transparency. I know that you've probably had many Mandela moments, Sharmla, but can you take us back in time to one specific moment? What was the moment? Can you describe it to us, and how did you feel at that time?
And I talked about it. I think one for my Mandela moment was, there were many Mandela moments growing up. I think for me, it is around when I started building Duke CE on the ground and the brand, trying to embed the agility into management and leadership. I remember the power when Mandela talks about the power of education extends beyond the development of skills we need for economic success. We can contribute to nation building and reconciliation. And for me, that Mandela moment was when I was giving up, when I was trying to build, this brand, and I was giving up. And I thought, what would Mandela say at this moment? It's around actually.
Did you have a conversation? Did you stop? Did you have a conversation?
I did. And this is absolutely. I did. I was sitting back at, in our offices with one of my colleagues, and I said to her, I actually used the phrase, the power of education extends beyond the development of skills we need for economic success. It can contribute to nation building. And I said to her, this is what we are here, right? This is what we're building. And she said, I get it now. And that is how we got the team together. It was that Mandela moment saying, we're not doing it for us. We're not doing it for Duke itself. We are doing it for our country as a nation building project. This Duke was a nation building, and we're going to actually contribute to this moment as part of our nation building. So for me, that was the, that moment in time. So, of course, we had to realize that we had to make some smart trade-offs. We had to also understand that there were going to be lots of challenges coming our way. But we also knew that along the road, there would be success that is coming. So instead of thinking about, all the things that can't happen, we're thinking about all the possibilities, the best types of leadership that, that can happen through Duke in our country, and making sure that we leverage those opportunities as well.
Yeah. What year was that, Sharmla?
This was actually in 2009, actually, when things were really going bad, as I alluded to, and we said no. This was our moment regarding nation building. So this project that we're doing, building Duke C on the ground, was a nation building agenda. And we're contributing to the economic possibilities of our country, not just, from a growth perspective, but from a growth perspective, we're talking about people growth. And that's how the teams felt at that moment in time.
I mean, that's such a powerful story. And of course, Duke, you've taken it way beyond contributing to South Africa as a nation, but, your impact on the world. So just share with us, how then did that step up, several gears to, put you into this role with this strong purpose in the world? What created that quantum leap for you?
So I think, one of the things, Africa has amazing opportunities, right, for leaders to learn globally. We learn in an agile. We can experiment. We understand resilience. We understand failure. But most importantly, we are positive as a nation. We are hardworking as a nation. And we are determined that this is possible. And so from that there was a huge opportunity for the global organization to see this team as a team that can actually is a good startup, but more importantly, that these models can be replicated elsewhere in the world. But most importantly, people like you, Anne, that can be taken from Africa into the next part around the world. And what great thought leadership. So we started importing talent, exporting talent from one end to the other instead of just importing talent. So for me, that was around how do we transport our talent around the world as well, because we never know the answer of no. We never know the answer of impossible. We just know it's possible because we understand that failure comes our way. There is going to be setbacks in our way, but we also understand that we have the ability to change that more positively as well for us. So I think we had, I've taken teams and transferred them to Asia. I've taken them to the UK, back to the US. So for me, it was, just taking the recipe of South Africans, a hardworking nation, a nation of determination, a nation of, that sees failure as an opportunity as well, that sees hope, that can dream big. We saw this with Nelson Mandela, the perseverance, the resilience. We have that as a nation. So it's just, implanting that elsewhere. That for me was wonderful to see that in teams. So we managed, so I took up the role to lead up Europe and Africa, and I worked, it worked really well. Of course, move talent around, sharing experience from both geos, but more importantly, it's important to learn from each other. Collectively, South Africa cannot stand on its own, but in the same way, the rest of the world together. For me, it's about how do you pull the whole thing together collectively, and that for me was the magic into this entire thing.
That's wonderful. And let's imagine for a moment, Nelson Mandela did the opening of the next Davos of Human Capital. What do you think he would say?
Well, Nelson Mandela would say the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, and it's around education. So I think it is now Duke CE. I'm so glad that you've taken this challenge and you have not disappointed me. You went ahead despite of all the adversities and laid Duke CE on the ground. So I encourage you to keep on doing good work and never stop, doing good work. And most importantly, keep on innovating, because you have a responsibility to a nation, you have a responsibility to the youth, and make sure that you keep going.
Yeah, no, I think I almost can hear him, uttering those words. I completely agree. Just to kind of change tone a little, just some sort of fun one-liners about you, Sharmla, on a more personal note, if you don't, if you can share this with us. You're a woman of the world, you started in our hometown of KwaZulu-Natal, Durban. What is your favorite city and country in the world?
My favorite city in the world is Norway. I love Norway, sorry, it's country, it's Norway.
Yeah.
And my favorite city in the world is still Durban.
Durban? And why?
I just love Durban. I love the humbleness of the city, the kindness of the city that, where you actually have the ability to learn, unlearn, and most importantly, a city that cares for each other, the humanity of the city. It's, you don't get lost in a city, but the kindness of everything around it. I think for me, I always come back when I wanted to sort myself out, and I just come back home and I just feel so safe in the city, I think it's just so, often I say this, it brings out so much, that the body needs around the energy, it's managing yourself, the self-care around yourself, but in the same simplicity, and it gives you, the opportunity to re-energize myself as well.
Yeah. And Norway?
Norway, I love it. I love the mountains. I love the oceans. I love the fjords, and I love the color. I just love the beauty of the place. Yes. And I love the food, of course, as well, and I enjoy the people too. So it's one of my favorite cities in the world, actually.
Yeah. Which city within Norway it kind of stands out?
Oslo.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you share something about you that very few people know about?
Well, I love sailing. People don't know this, but I love sailing. So I really enjoy sailing. And I love cooking. I'm a great cook. My mom was a great cook, and very late in my life, I started cooking, and I really enjoy it a lot. I take a lot of pride, and when I wanted to de-stress, I do a lot of cooking. And I also enjoy climbing mountains, right?
Wow.
And so I climb Mount Kenya. I would love to climb Mount Kilimanjaro at some stage as well.
Well, we share that passion, Sharmla. We share that passion. Yeah, there's something quite special about that. And just share one thing that you're very excited about in the world right now.
Well, I'm excited that, that one of the things is that, the ESG agenda is quite close to me at the moment.
And you just explain that
the environment, governance, and social pieces. But for me, it's actually putting purpose into action. It's actually thinking about the big question is around, how do we go beyond our whole material world, the whole higher purpose? And most importantly, how do you bring planet and people together and in a sustainable way? And I think for me, that is the most important thing, because the whole ecosystem is coming together now. ESG, I'm excited that, how do you put it on every single person's agenda? It becomes the DNA of not just corporate, but to an individual. Because, if I look at the youth, they're wanting to join organization for a social purpose, right?
Yes.
And what does that actually mean? So I think for me, it's like really an exciting time that ESG is in the center, and it's playing a higher order at the moment. The other part is that our youth, when I think about the youth at the moment, they're getting more and more technology savvy. And so for me, it's these youths are having a voice, and how do we give them more platform, and how do they influence the things that are happening around us? So for me, that is like, how do you create that moment for them to actually become part of a conversation? Wherever I go, I encourage that as well. We need to bring the next generation forward. We need to actually help them and to create space as well for them. And women, of course, it's so close to my heart. I created Women Leading Africa, the board program. But I think what we also know that women are going to be economic drivers, but more importantly, how do we support each other as women as well?
Of course. So in our final moment, Sharmla, are there any final takeaways in terms of, not only our generation, but the next bold leaders who want to lead with competence and care and skill into the future? Any final takeaways?
I think to throw yesterday's playbook up, right? The actions that drove us are no longer going to be here. So I think you need to adjust quickly, develop plans of action, figure out how you can strengthen and build direct connections, as well as triangulate, and help each other in the situation as well. So I think for me, it is create networks, be open to new ideas, be open to unlearn, be open to relearn all the time going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sharmla, what a great joy to speak to you again. I can't wait to be together in person. I would love to be at one of your dinner parties and experience the culinary skills of you in the kitchen. And, you're a trailblazer, you're an inspirer, and you're certainly a bold leader of the future. So thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for having me, and have a lovely afternoon too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Talking to Sharmla Chetty today takes me back to our transformational work, working with cabinet ministers, boards and executives in a top internationally aligned executive search firm, where we researched, coached and assessed around 10,000 top potential leaders in South Africa, Africa, and beyond. It reminded me of the leadership demands that came when South Africa transformed from an oppressive autocracy into a modern, stable democracy, pre, during, and post Mandela's presidency, when he was elected as the first democratically elected president of South Africa. It was a time when a Black majority took over power from a fearful white minority, a time when together we needed to allay the anxieties and fears of many minorities, build a non-racial society, and heal multiple angry, deep divides. It was a time that was out with the old and in with the new. Fast forward to today, we're living in a pivotal global moment, what I like to call a Mandela moment, a twin pillar moment of despair and hope. Albert Einstein once said, "If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got." Well, we don't need to be an Einstein genius to know that the current leadership models are broken, they're not working, and they've been broken for a long time. That on this global stage, in this current age, we're facing the biggest unprecedented existential threats, challenges, and opportunities that transcend our national borders, a time where national thinking and populist nationalism can no longer survive. We also know that we're living in a radically changed world at a time that not only requires but demands bigger and better thinking, bold new actions, and a global leadership movement for change. Like Nelson Mandela did for and with South Africa and the world, you too can become a radical new thinker, a bold disruptor, and a courageous champion of change. Emboldened and inspired by Mandela's life and leadership, the world has done it before, and we can do it again. So until next time, remember that leading boldly is about making thoughtful, clear choices. And bold leadership is about taking bold action, just one small step at a time. One step for you, but together, one giant step for humanity. You too can throw out the old and bring in the new. And why? Because the world needs you to lead boldly too. So take care and take thoughtful, bold action.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leading Boldly into the Future. Please find links and connections mentioned in this show in our blog and never miss an episode by subscribing at anne-pratt.com. That's ANNE-PRATT.com. May these insights from inspiring industry leaders, remarkable disruptors, and courageous champions of change bring forth a brand new you, emboldened, empowered, and ready to inspire hope. Come back soon, share with your friends, sign up on anne-pratt.com and join our movement for change. Why? Because the world needs you to lead boldly too.